What's up, everybody? This is Nigel Hall reporting live from New Orleans, Louisiana for Justice Comes Alive, and I am fortunate to have as a guest now a very, very close friend of mine and colleague, and you all know him and love him, and some of us just know him. Uh,
Big business. Big business.
Mr. Eric Krasno, how you doing, Kras?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's a crazy time to be alive, and there's a lot of reasons to be distraught, but trying to stay positive as much as possible.
Yeah, yeah, no. It's a lot of good reasons to want to be on the right side of history because this is history happening right now.
A lot of history. I
You
think
know,
this year, whether we like it or not, is going to be in the history books for a long, long time.
yeah. Did you see that meme? There was some sort of meme on social media where it's like this dude walking past the burning house with a smile on his face, and it's like if 2020 were an album cover.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's basically what it is, though. But you know what? One thing I noticed too, and one thing that I thought of was like, if you're really into that, and if you're really into that thing of like spirituality and believe in divine intervention, it's kind of divine intervention that COVID-19 got us to go home and drop everything so that we could kind of and then this whole racial tension happened, and
yeah,
so it's like it kind of got you to go somewhere and like put your undivided attention
yeah.
on this matter and this matter alone because that's all it is.
I think you're absolutely right. I don't know that it would have gotten the same attention and would have had the same uh, if it would have the way that it rattled the world, which as it should, and it may not have happened in another time period. And I think it's a convergence of so many things, man. It's making us take stock of what's really important too, how we treat one another, how we treat the people around us. I mean, I think it's also like slowing down during the COVID-19 thing has been making us really reflect on how we act, how we, I know for me personally, it's made me kind of like slow down and appreciate my relationships with my friends and my family and my wife and just everything, and like trying to really take stock of who I am and how I want to represent myself. And then for this whole thing to happen at the same time, while a lot of us have time to think on it, you know what I mean? To think about um, how this affects the world and how this affects the world around us. I think one of the things that I have tried to take from this is really to look at what I can do in my world. I also think that me having a voice in a community, in our community, like our music community, that I can say some things, but I also think, and think I should say things, but I also want to stress that a lot of us, at least white people specifically, should also be listening. We should be listening because we don't know that much about this. You know what I mean? We like to pretend like we know. We don't know. Even if we're in bands with people with multiracial bands, or we have our best friends and even family members, it's like if you've never felt being discriminated against, then you can't really speak on it. That's at least I feel that way. What I can speak
Empathy.
on
Empathy.
what I can speak on is how I operate and how I allow the people around me to operate. And that's what I've been examining. And I know, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to be talking this much. I know this is
No, 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 no,
but
no.
I had to
Go
come.
right ahead. Go right ahead.
I've been trying to
Because
examine.
you're actually answering the first question I was going to ask
Okay,
you,
okay,
which
good.
is how can white people come correct?
Right. Well, and I don't think I have the
But
answer for it.
continue. But
The answer
continue.
for
What you
me of
saying?
what I can do is to examine how things are operating around me. Number one, making sure that people actually um, have the equal opportunity around me. You know what I'm saying? And to not judge people for any other reason than what they bring to the situation. You know, if I'm in music, I hire people or work with people because of their musicality and because I like being around them. The other thing is to not allow, you know, all white people know someone that's racist.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And even though we don't see it in the same way as maybe a black person would, because you guys see it day to day,
You
as
know, and
you are.
and that sort of mentality has to be taught too.
Exactly.
You know.
And so what I've kind of vowed in my as of the last few months of being around this is not only to make sure that my actions are correct, but to not allow the people around me to think it's okay to be racist and to be discriminatory. You know, and I think before sometimes I've been scared to like I've just avoided people and gone and walked away from them. If I hear someone being like that or I hear something, I walk away. Now I'm not going to do that anymore, you know, or at least I am going to do my best to confront that person and talk about it, because how can they really defend their action legitimately? You know, I mean, I want you to if you're
Well,
racist, I want you to explain to me why you think that, and I want to engage in the dialogue, or I just want to tell you that it's. I mean, I am going to tell you that it's wrong. But if you come
well,
back to me and want to talk about it, I do. Like, I want people should not be convinced that that is the right way to be.
part of the problem is that, you know, especially right now at the beginning of this. I mean, for me, I feel somewhat hopeful, somewhat, because normally I'm not, because this type of shit happens every month for black people. You
Right.
know, a black man gets shot 5 times in the back, in fucking broad daylight, and then we all get together, and Reverend Al Sharpton comes to the rescue and rallies up all the black people, and nobody does anything. You know what I'm saying? And allows it to happen so that we continue to keep having this happen over and over again. So I think that because this is gonna get, you know, it's gonna be weird at first. It's gonna be weird talking about it. When you do something new or when you try to learn something new, you have to kind of like really, like if you're shedding, you gotta really focus and shed. And yeah, it's gonna be uncomfortable to
Yeah.
learn this new thing that you're trying to teach yourself at the beginning. But the more you do it, and the more you open up dialogue, and the more you take time to really do your homework, you know, um, I feel like it's going to get easier, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Right. Right.
You know, I really feel like that. I really feel like it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Well, I think that
And
process getting worse before better has been happening. You know what I mean?
yeah, well,
I think
I
there's,
mean,
but I hear
I
you.
yeah,
I
go ahead.
I think one of the things is that, you know, since Trump's been president, uh, that a lot of people that are racist are now feeling like it's okay to come out into the light. You know what I mean? And a lot of it really surprised me that they're, you know, because I've also been in a sheltered situation. I've always lived in New York City or California or in communities where that were multicultural and whatever. And then all of a sudden I'm driving through the South with my band, like whatever, a couple years ago, right before Trump was going to be elected. I didn't even realize that there was a chance of him being elected. And all of a
Nobody
sudden, I
did.
see signs everywhere, and I realized that, you know, racism is a lot more rampant than than I realized. You know,
You know what I found out? I found out that for every person that came out of the woodworks and voted for change and voted for Obama and voted for something real, there's that same amount of people, probably more, in the United States that didn't vote. That when Trump ran, all of those people came out in the woodwork.
right?
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And
It's
voted
true.
for this
It's true.
foolishness.
Yeah.
So now that's like where we are, and it's like the same. It's equal. Really, honestly, I think it's more. I think it's more
Yeah.
people
But
in
I
this
think like
country.
going back to what you're saying has to get worse before it gets better. I think part of that is actually uh, realizing what is wrong. Like the people coming out and seeing the okay, now these people are in the light and we can see
Mhm.
that they exist. How are we going to deal with them? A, and then B, understanding like what we don't know. Like you said, it's hard to learn about these things. It's also hard to admit that you don't know.
And it's
And I
hard to,
think,
and it's
you
also
know what I
hard
mean?
to admit your role in the problem. It's
Exactly.
hard for people to man up
Right.
about their role in whatever the problem is.
And I
And
think that's something we need to examine right now because that's been something that I've had to think about. I've had to think about like, what can I do? Obviously I can be on social media saying this, that, and the other, but a lot of people that know me or that are around me probably know how I feel about this, right? What can I do that's going to change somebody new? That's maybe going to bring attention to this in a different way. And I wouldn't say I have all the answers, but like I said, like not allowing for not even not allowing, but confronting racism wherever I see it, I think is number one. And I actually have seen some change in that. Like you said, there is some
well, I
positives.
mean, but then the question is this: is how do you confront that? If we're in the airport and
Yeah,
somebody gives me a middle seat and they give you a fucking first class seat
right,
and
right.
it's clearly racist, what you gonna say to them people?
Well,
You know what I'm
maybe
saying?
I'm not going to
How do you
confirm.
deal with that?
Maybe I give you my seat, you know. But yeah, I think like in certain
And then
cases,
and then throw a side eye to the agent, maybe. It's like, you motherfuckers.
I mean, I don't know exactly how. You're right, though. I don't know exactly how to deal with it, but I
You're not
think
gonna know. You're not gonna know until you put in the situation.
so. Yeah, and but I am.
And it's coming. Don't act like it's not gonna happen ever.
No, you're right. You're right.
Because
And
now it's starting to like. I really see it like this, man. I really hate to look at it like this, but this is exactly what it looked like. It's a fucking race war. Malcolm talked about this years and years ago, and he said that it's just a powder keg waiting to explode. And it's
yeah,
a wonder that it hasn't exploded the way that it has just recently. But I think that the impact is just so much stronger now. I think with the demographic of young people, we especially black people, as we weren't allowed to be as blatant as we can be sometimes. Now it's just a matter, it's just black people talking loud and saying nothing. And because that's what's happened. It always happens, and we always rally, and nothing gets done. So like now, I feel like, especially with the help of social media and just it always being in your face all the time to a point where you can't ignore it, I feel a little bit hopeful. I mean, you and I have discussed these things over the years, and I've always had the same mode of thinking. Like, I want to see fucking action. I don't want to see nobody rallying me up. I don't want to hear a good speech. I don't want to hear no fucking Negro spirituals, and I don't want to be marching up and down the street with people. I want something done. And marching I'm starting to realize that the marching is working. It's working because not only is it happening here, but it's happening all over the world.
yeah.
Everybody in the world, this shit ain't even got nothing to do with them. And it's happening all over the world. So like now I feel like something is happening because of that, because of just the mass of people who are like, yo, this shit is fucked up.
Yeah.
You got your neighbors now telling you that you can smell the shit in your house. You know what I mean? It's like a neighborhood, and we all in the neighborhood. And we got Europe and America and South America and Canada, and like we all live in this apartment building together, which is the world, and everybody else can smell the shit that's coming out of the American apartment. You know what I mean?
Right. You're
Somebody
right.
even said that Canada is on top of us, and they can smell like the meth lab that is America under under them. It was hilarious. You kind of had to be there for it, but
Well, I think that
but it's the truth though. And
you're right.
now
You're right.
people in the apartment building are starting to come together and be like, look, clean up your fucking house or get out.
Well, I think it starts with our leadership. I mean, right now, our leader,
Is
whatever you wanna call
incapable of anything.
right.
Is
Not only that,
incapable
but
of
he
any
also
fucking
his
thing.
ideals are, it's insane. It's insane that he actually won.
My
Supposed
18-year-old son could run the country 180 degrees better
yeah,
than Donald Trump can.
for sure, for sure. So I think it starts.
I'm really positive about
there,
that.
But I think like that the discussion of systemic racism is something that, you know, we have talked about for years, but now that is a general discussion,
Right.
that people didn't realize. People don't think about that.
Right. Because there's a difference between blatant racism and systematic racism.
Yeah, well, systemic racism is that the fact that the opportunities that supposedly are there, you know, keep getting, you know, minorities just keep getting pushed down, even though it makes it look like they've gotten this, they've gotten that. But every time they're given an, you know, opportunity to grow, a lot of times they're pushed down again, or it's used for the benefit of rich people or white people. And so that discussion being in public now a little bit more than it was before, I think, like you said, it's like it has to get a little bit worse to get better. A lot of people are arguing about that, and I see people's posts going back and forth and people arguing about things all the time right now. But I think the dialogue is important, and people talking about it is important, and people need to know, like, that the disadvantage that people have had for so long, you know what I mean? And it has to stop somehow. And it's actually, you know, I watched that piece. I don't know if you saw the piece that Jay Sansone did, where in New York City, where he followed the marches and stuff. It was
Shout
really
to Jay Sansone.
interesting. Yeah, he really did a good job on that, and I recommend people watching this to watch it. But it talk people it covers a few of the like community leaders talking about whether force should be used or force shouldn't be used. And it's an interesting topic because without the force being used, you maybe nothing happens because nothing's happened for so long. But it's an interesting debate. I don't know where I end up on it, but it's interesting hearing people talk about it. I do know that nothing's happened for so long. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
what are people supposed to do besides go to the streets and protest? What else are they supposed to do?
Well, that's how I feel. Like I feel like, you know, I don't condone it. I don't condone them silly motherfuckers out there looting and robbing and shit like that, because they ain't doing nothing but making us look like they want us to look anyway.
Right.
But I think that the reason I feel hopeful is because we went to the streets and rioted and burnt some shit down. You know, fire brings everything back to its essence. It cleans it right back to the source, you know? And
you know what? I
truly,
doubt they would have arrested those 4 cops if it weren't for the protests and what
if
happened.
it weren't for the protests, exactly. Well, they still ain't what's the girl, Breonna Taylor? They you should see the fucking police report today. And right now, currently, it is empty.
Yeah.
Ain't nobody fucking, you know, they still haven't done, they haven't arrested the people who killed her.
I know.
I don't even think they arrested the man who got killed, who was randomly stopped by the police and shot in the back 5 times because the police couldn't get himself together to tell him enough what he stopped him for. So he was just like, all right, I'm out, which is his fucking right. And he got shot in the back in daytime. People filming it. He didn't care. He ain't got. I don't think he was arrested either. I may be wrong in that, but either way, it don't matter. You know, and just the fact that we all are aware that something really needs to change and fucking fast.
We just need to know how. I mean, honestly, I heard Obama speak. Maybe that was about a week ago, and it was the first time I heard someone speak on this issue where I saw some strategy and some planning, like where I forget what the actual protocol was, but he was calling for mayors to sign up for this protocol that would show them, that would make them accountable for these changes, like that would actually affect the, you know, discrimination coming from the police departments, and actually a process to trying to single out who these bad cops are and getting rid of them. You know what I mean? I did a horrible job explaining that, but you know, it made me realize how important good leadership can be. Is right, because we've been in such a shitty situation these past few years that we need that. Yeah, and at this point, we kind of need to maybe just forget about, just try to put as much energy into those things as possible. That's why, like, and I don't even know the best organizations, but I've been trying to contribute to like Campaign Zero and some of these other organizations that seem to have some sort of plan. You know what I mean? And I think if anything, like you asked, like, what can we do to help? What can we do to change? Getting information on what organizations are actually holding people accountable for the actions that they say. Because that's the thing, is that a lot of politicians will get up there and say, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to do this, and try to get money, try to get
Yeah.
votes.
Try
And
to
they
pass a couple bills and it's cute
they
and
don't
all.
follow through with anything.
Right.
So I think it's like you said, it's just like we've been saying, it's systemic. The racism and just the culture of politics revolving around money. It's like the reason that a lot of elected officials are elected are because they have money from companies that then they have to scratch their back and do a lot of different things that are not right. You know what I mean? And I'm hopeful that politics and people in power can actually have the future of our kids in mind. You know what I mean? And trying to make it a better place, and not a better place just for them, and does not just to make themselves money. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
So I think, like you said, there is some hope in all of this. It is in that phase where it's getting worse before it gets better. That's what I hope. And I think it's the same thing with COVID. I mean, it's horrible that people are getting sick, people are dying, but I think it's also making us take a look at how we treat the world, how we treat the environment, how we treat each other, and that, like, we need to slow down a little bit. That's like the whole, capitalist culture of America is everyone's trying to go get it, at the cost of everything, including their health and their relationships and their family. So I know for me, it's making me take stock, like I said before, of like, I haven't had, in the last few months, I've had more conversations with my friends than ever before. Unfortunately, a lot of them have been about race and stuff like that. But I think it's also, we've come out the other end having a better relationship.
Better understanding of each other. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the silver lining, one of the silver linings for me.
Yeah, man. Well, you all heard it here first. This is Nigel Hall for Justice Comes Live with my homie, Kras. And, get your shit together.